Yes.
How are you? Firstly, I must apologize for yesterday. I'm so sorry. It just slipped my mind.
No, that's okay. That's not an issue. I think we've been doing so many meetings, of course, as you must have been doing as well. And there are always these, with the online meetings, unless you're physically present, you're going somewhere, you need to be somewhere, and
Yeah.
there is a lot of preparation before
No,
that
it's
goes on.
just,
Before that,
yeah, it's a Friday. So what, and they
yeah,
invite me to come to my office email. And on Fridays, it's a holiday here. So I tend
yeah,
not to check them early in the morning. The day
right.
before, very late meetings. And then I got a lot of phone calls also, which somehow
Mm.
in Truecaller came as spam call. And I just kept declining
That
them.
was our office calling you.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, but the other thing is that, with the online meetings, unless you put up a calendar reminder, it's a
yeah,
very high chance that you'll forget it.
yeah. Actually, this was not on my calendar. I blocked my calendar, but somehow my assistant didn't put it with the Zoom invite on my calendar because I think the mail I forgot to forward to her. So
Mm.
that otherwise she also reminds me, especially if it's over
Sure.
a weekend. But she had no clue about it as well either. So it's
Yeah.
okay. Anyway, all
Well,
good.
so how have you been?
All good. It's good. We are getting used to this new normal.
Mm.
Where home is office and office is home and everything is topsy-turvy, but otherwise good. I mean, business is good. People, thankfully, are safe in our team. So I'm happy about that, and family is good.
How has 2020 treated you?
It's been a year of many years, I think. But if I look at it in summary, I think it's been a year of great learning and a lot of gratefulness.
Mm.
So business, if I talk from a business standpoint, we have bounced back very, very strongly. So if you following Procter and Gamble results both globally as well as in India, you would see our business was never better, never healthier. And most importantly, from a people as well as family front, everybody's safe, and all the people that I work with, thankfully, all our plants, everybody's safe. So it's not like the pandemic hasn't touched them, but we've able to secure everybody's safety, and thankfully to God, everything is fine. So, like I say, it's a great learning, but most importantly, it's a year of gratefulness.
Yes. And the other good thing was, of course, you winning the award. So congratulations on being
Thank
awarded
you
the
so much.
Young Alumni Achievers
Thank
Award.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was a privilege. I didn't even realize I'd been nominated, but I realized that the past year's nominations just automatically continue.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And one of my brand managers, I think a couple of years ago, Deepak may have nominated me, is what I realized. It just continued.
Right.
So thank you. Thank you for the privilege.
Sure. So you graduated from IIMA almost 23 years back, 1998, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. My God, it's already 23 years. In our head, we have this sticker, right? So I remembered when it became 20 years, we had our alumnus get together. We all went to Goa. So I remembered. I thought it was just like yesterday. And then in my head, it was almost stuck, yeah, 20, around 20. Didn't even
Mhm.
realize it's not 23. A couple of years will be
So
going.
those milestone
25th get
years,
together.
yeah, yeah. So we would, I mean, obviously love to have you back for for the 25th year reunion. And that's one of the biggest reunions that we have. We have reunions on all the milestone years like 10,
Yes.
15, 20, and so on. 25th year is perhaps the biggest one, which, gets a lot of participation.
Yeah, I'm looking
Uh,
forward to it, really.
yeah. So when were you on campus last?
I think when I was in India, I used to come very regularly for recruitments as well as talks. But now it must be at least 4 years, I would think. I think 4 to 5 years ago, I came for recruitment last, yeah, 4 years ago.
Hmm.
Yes.
So what do you miss the most from your Dada days?
Oh
But
my
before that,
God.
I want to know how
Are
did
you
that?
recording all of this?
Yes, yes, I am. It's going
Okay.
to be on the IIMA YouTube channel, and everybody's going to know about it. But before that, what you before you tell me about what you miss about those days and what you liked and your fondest memories, etc. I just want to know how did that name come about?
It came about because of the way I used to walk. Okay, I think at least that's my version of it. It may also be because of the way I used to behave, but I like not to think that. I think I had like a little bit of a swagger when I walked, so I think that's when the name came. And I used to be a good avid sports person. I used to play cricket. I was a loud person also. I think I used to do the dom cheers very, very loudly, and I think that's how it stuck then.
Mm. And what do you remember the most from those days?
I remember a lot of things very fondly. The combos, I was very avid, enthusiastic participant in everything. I remember the combos, the talent night. For the first time in my life, I did a fashion show. And then, of course, the most important times were the times I spent with who's now my husband, Sanjeev. And we were in the same grade together, section together, C. We used to be together in all the groups that the campus put us together for. So I really enjoy that. I also enjoy like the marketing fairs, chaos. So it was just a fun 2 years.
Mm. And that's an interesting point because, obviously the IIMA is known for the academic rigor, and that's a given, that's going to be really one of the best, and it's going to be a really pressure cooker situation, really tough, sleepless nights and all those things. But a lot of people do not realize the outside the classroom experiences, which actually have a an effect that shapes the person. It's a really powerful way of and a holistic experience which sort of lives with you. you know.
I absolutely agree, and you really make good friends at that time. In my case, I also found my life partner, but you really make a lot of friendships. And, sometimes when we all come, we are told things like it's extremely competitive, everything is relative graded. And I think sometimes inadvertently, people start to look at your classmates almost like competitors. Now, thankfully, that didn't happen with me. And I think the friendships last a lot more and lot longer than the rivalries. And the happy times you remember a lot more than some of the poor grades that you might have got in some of the quizzes, right? So that stayed with me. I had a really nice time. I also liked Ahmedabad as a city. I loved the kite festival. I used to love, on Diwali, we used to be in campus. I used to love the decorations we used to do. The food was awesome. So for me, it was an excellent, excellent 2 years.
Uh, what does this award mean to you? This recognition mean to you? I mean, you've been recognized for your work already several times. In many places, many platforms. But what does this one mean to you?
I think this is very special when your alma mater and such as IIM Ahmedabad gives you a recognition, it is something special. Because this is a place where many esteemed people have walked out the doors and the hallways of IIM Ahmedabad. It's a prestigious institute. And when your teachers, when your peers from that institute recognize you, I think it is something truly special. So this one it will stay in my heart for long, I think lifelong.
So it's been a while since you've been out of campus, and you've obviously charted a really interesting and exciting and a successful path for you. So tell us about your journey since campus and about creating your own path of success at PNG, and to many important leadership roles, yeah, across the region, across the world.
Thank you so much. You're very kind. No, my path was actually quite simple in the sense that I actually joined PNG as my first job in life and the first one out of campus. And I've stayed ever since for 23 years. But in these 23 years within Procter, I joined first in India in hair care. And after a couple of years, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go to Singapore. I stayed there for another 8 to 9 years. I was again on hair care right through. I worked on every brand there was in that region. That region it was called at that time Australia India region, the AAI region, right? The Asia Pac Australia India region. So I worked there for the first 8 years in hair care. Then I had the opportunity to come back to India to lead the beauty business in India and the media operations in India. I came back in 2009. I was in India for the next 2 years. My second kid, my son, was born in India. And then again, I had the opportunity to lead the pet care business for Asia. Now, this was an unusual role. So, as a managing director for Pet Care Asia, I went back to Singapore, where I worked for a couple of years. Then I had a personal need to be back because my husband, who's an entrepreneur, he really had a need to be in India. He was traveling a lot. We thought it might be easier if we were in India. I requested the company. Luckily for me, it worked out, and I came back in India as the CMO for India and head of the commercial operations and brand operations. After that, I took another role within India as the head of the fabric care business while keeping my CMO responsibilities on top of that. And then I found myself here in Dubai heading the feminine hygiene business for what we now call the AMA region, which is the Asia Pac, Middle East, and Africa region. So this has been my journey so far, 23 years, 23 almost, 10 in India, 10 in Singapore, 5 moves, and now almost coming on to 2 years in Dubai.
I mean, obviously you're a veteran of the industry now. You have experience across regions, across verticals, and broad expanse in that sense. But primarily, obviously, focused on marketing and advertising and related areas. How do you see the future of marketing and the advertising function evolving, and especially with the convergence with technology, and not only in terms of the way the consumer is consuming products now and responding to the messages, but also in terms of the way the companies have to deal with it?
Yeah, I think it's just so evolving that I think I could talk for probably hours on how things have changed from the time where we used to make a 30-second copy, one concept copy, put it in air and then relax for 6 months, right? This is definitely not that era. I think the basics are quite similar in that you still have to be absolutely consumer focused. It's all about getting the right insight. It's about having great products which are then brought to life with great insights, great communication. But the way we go to consumers, in fact, even the way we go about looking and mining for those insights, it's become a lot more customized. And now it's all about customizing the relevant product, the relevant insight, but then doing it at scale. And really those companies who have mastered the art of doing old-fashioned work, but on a one-on-one level, now using technology, I think that's what is the big shift which has happened. I can create not one commercial, not one creative, but I can create hundreds and thousands of them, actually even using AI, customized to be delivered to the right people, which again can be delivered to you on your screen, whichever screen it is, not at your choice when you want to see it, right? So I think that's the essential nature of marketing. I don't think is any different. It's about consumer delight and consumer relevance. But I think the way it is now delivered, both in the creation of the product as well as the creation of the message and then its final delivery, that has changed immensely in the last 20 years.
What do you think is the centerpiece of how the change is going to come about in the short to medium term? As in, what do you feel are the 2 to 3 biggest transformative changes that are going to come in this field?
It's a very difficult question because it's very difficult to predict how things would evolve. When people would ask me this question like 3 or 4 years ago, we would say, oh, the future is digital, the future is mobile. And there were a few cliches like that. Right now, if you ask people, probably there'll be a few cliches like the future is AI and the future is some other, I think, blockchain or some other word like that. I think it's very difficult to predict. I think there are a few trends which are here, which I think will continue, right? And one of those is really about less about mass marketing, but more about one-to-one marketing. The other one, I think, which will be a very big one, is what I call permission marketing, right? I think that in the past, we never have to take permission. We just blast people. Even when it became digital, it was not about taking your permission to talk to you, right? It was still about somehow getting your information and data and then squeezing your message or your content in. I think permission marketing is one of the things which is going to become huge. People will want to get the messaging that they are getting. They will want to share the data only when they think that's going to be useful for them to share. And enterprises and companies which master that skill of taking permission before you start to market to anybody, I think those will be at the forefront, which is forefront of winning. And I think that's where data, how to have it, how to use it, is going to determine a lot of the future of marketing going forward. So this is the one that I would like to talk about more. I think many other trends, which is that of one-on-one mass customization, relatively great progress in terms of programmatic ways to reach consumers. Having customized product design is another one, I think, which is something which I think is going to evolve more and more. So more and more smaller players, niche players, even big companies making niche products which are much more customized towards micro targets is another trend that I think is going to really become big. The other one I think is experiences more than products. And I think that's another one I can see products are getting relatively less different from each other. The features that we talk about can be easily copied, and therefore it's about experiences, and within that experience of that brand, it's the overall feeling that you get after the after experience, which is going to become, I think, more and more important to determine not just trial, but actually loyalty of products and services going forward. So those are a few of the trends I can see. Well, but I'm no soothsayer. I don't know how things will be in the future that is going to come.
And of course, the consumer perception and the way the consumer sort of looks at messages and how he, perceives it and how he processes it, or he or she processes it, that has also undergone a change. And obviously, 2020 has acted as a catalyst in that. Uh, what do you think are the major changes that are coming about in that, and especially that have been ushered in by COVID?
Again, I think many different trends that we can see emerging after the pandemic. Some of them are actually pretty antithetical. You might think it should not be so, but we are seeing it. I think firstly, there is genuinely a very increased focus on hygiene and personal wellness, which is expected, right? You expect people to become much more conscious about hygiene. Products which are much more sustainable, natural, safe. We're seeing the emergence of that even more so. I think as the pandemic happened, I mean, we may have hated the shutdown years, but we literally saw the earth come to life. And you could see the airs clearing out, people breathing better. And I think that gave the realization that we need to have a more sustainable way of living. And I can see that sustainability is going to become one of the big frontiers going forward. At the same time, what we're seeing is also a lot of personal indulgence coming through. There's more time for yourself that I'm seeing with mothers, with girls. But they have to do it themselves, and they're not going on to salons for those indulgences or similar such things. But there is definitely more time for themselves that people are finding. This is a world where mental wellness, I think, is a very challenging ask. I mean, a lot of people are finding different stresses and strains, right from the fact of managing family and work from home, kids to be schooled, as well as health crisis, parents staying away from you and not being able to meet your loved ones. So there is a lot of focus also on products and services, which can somehow help you feel better about yourself and then cope with the new normal. And here is that's another trend, I think, in one end of personal wellness, but another one also of indulgence and personal indulgences, which I also see coming. And some of the ones right? The move towards e-commerce, the move towards a lot more screen time. I think technologies which we never thought we'd be using the way we are using now, all the way from signing documents completely digitally, all the way to certain other tools like what we're using just now, Zoom meetings. So I think those things are changing, are big shifts that we've seen in consumption patterns as well as people's priorities in life, which I don't think will unwind so fast.
And in this entire context of vast changes coming about suddenly and in such a rapid fashion, how important is the gender lens here? And also specifically given your experience in the corporate world, having to navigate all the challenges and all the the rules and regulations and all the other things that come along with it. So I mean, obviously you are uniquely positioned to have a personal experience with that. And also, how is the role of women in business and marketing changing per se? And what are the transitions that you've seen from the time that you started your first stint in the corporate world?
So it's a very loaded question and it has many parts. So let me try and take each part a little bit separately, right? The first question you asked is, in this time and with the crisis coming in the pandemic, how has it impacted women? Like with any crisis in the world, whether it be wars or famines, any crisis, I think women get more impacted by crisis. They have to do a harder chunk of the work at home while also maintaining their families. They're the ones who tend to lose their jobs more often. Many more women will actually have left the workplace to be able to cope up with the increased responsibilities than have men. As salary cuts have happened and as people have lost jobs, a greater chunk of that has been women. This is reality. This is the truth. So definitely, if you look at the role of the pandemic, I think it has hurt women a lot more disproportionately. And that's true for any minority or any relatively less privileged part of the society. They're always going to be hit more when crisis hits. And I can see it also as you look at work environments, colleagues, right? There is definitely the greater added pressure of homeschooling kids, kids at home, the work and the housework, as you don't get that much household help, plus the added pressure of them keeping up with work. So there is a greater impact on women, as you had as the first part of the question, right? The second you had said is it impacting, how has my personal journey been through right now, the current crisis, as well as before in life? So I'll take that second part of the question next, and I'll start from the second half of your question, which is my journey as a woman, career journey. Well, it ought to have been difficult. It ought to have been difficult because we know that with women, their biological clock and their career clocks, they completely compete with each other. I got out of campus at 98. I got married at 99. I had my first child. So I got married as an assistant brand manager. I got my first child as a brand manager. I had my second child as my associate director. And in between this, we had 4 moves from Singapore, Mumbai. Right? So it ought to have been difficult, but thankfully for me, it wasn't. And it wasn't because the most important thing is family. My my husband, Sanjeev Dumir, he's also from IIMA Ahmedabad. He was completely with me, supportive all the while. In fact, when we got married, he was employed in Singapore. His first job was in Singapore. I was in Mumbai. So we both told our companies, if we don't end up being together, we'll have to leave. PNG said, sorry, Singapore at that time, we didn't have a regional office. It was a tin pot little operation for us. They said, sorry, we don't have something. This company said, come here, and if you can find a business, then you can relocate. So he actually relocated. And we did that. He did that actually 2-3 times later for all the moves. So he's been a rock, really supportive. And even in my current Dubai move, we knew we might move to Dubai. He had started the Dubai office of his company even beforehand, so that I got more flexibility to move. The second person is my mother-in-law. She lives with us, and she's been really a huge support. She's been sending me out to work after my first maternity, just 3 months, and she said, no, I'll take care of the baby. You just go and stay relaxed. She's been like another parent for our children, and she's really, she is the real support behind which I could do what I could do. And I think the other big reason has been the company. PNG is just such a fabulous place for women to be in. The company policies are fabulous. The people are so supportive. And I came back from my first maternity leave. My manager, Mainak, who was also from Ahmedabad, I told him I want to breastfeed for a year. And he said, no worries. I didn't actually travel in a regional job as a director, as a brand manager. I didn't travel for a year. And he was okay with it. Right? So there have been just so many great stories also of the company. So like I said, it ought to have been very difficult, but with the family and with the company that I was blessed with, it ended up being relatively, so far, touch wood, a lot smoother than it could have been. And now I'll take your third part of the question on how it is in general for women, and how are things changing. Now, firstly, the fact is things are changing, and things are changing for the better in the world that I see around, at least corporately. Right? There's a lot more awareness for equality and inclusion, including, definitely in the company that I work on, it was always on the forefront. Diversity was always an agenda for PNG. We serve women, but I think now even more so, this is not just about diversity, it's about equality and it's about inclusion. So it's not just about women being present, it's about women having a voice, having their voice and being included into everything, into every decision, and at the top levels of companies and corporations. PNG has this as a major agenda. And we just concluded actually yesterday our VC Equal Summit and made a lot of declarations on this regard, whether it be 50-50, a declaration for 50-50 representation at all levels, whether it be a declaration of paternity leave, which we just announced across the whole region for 8 weeks, or really at least ensuring 50-50 female directors. I think PNG is one company, but I think overall in the industry, this acceptance of the fact that companies which are more equal and diverse have better results. It's now, I think, a well-held, a well-founded belief. And that's making it relatively easier. There are more formal and informal networks in companies. I think the social fabric is also changing, maybe not as fast. And that's where I think there is still, I think, not that fast a change. Even today, when we raise our daughters, we are raising our daughters to be really strong, independent women. But when we are raising our sons, we are not necessarily raising them to be as ready for these strong, independent women. All right. And I think that's where, from a social fabric, I think more needs to be done. You need to have guys who will willingly say, okay, I'm going to share the load, I'm going to share in the caregiving, I'm going to be an equal player. And I think that expectation from sons is still not something which mothers and fathers are putting on them from the word go. Though I think what has changed is that there's a lot more expectation from daughters to really be these powerful influences on in corporate as well as political circles. So I think that's where more can be done as well.
So you've touched upon a few things that I was going to ask you anyway, right? But let me still, go ahead and do that. So after the Cannes event in 2019, one of the biggest takeaways for you was obviously diversity and inclusion. And on the gender front, that only 4% of the work is actually done by women in terms of whom the marketing personnel, ad planners, etc., choose to work with. Now, COVID has been both good and bad for this in the sense that work from home has become more prevalent and acceptable, and women now have more of an opportunity to participate in the workforce. Since then, could you just elaborate on some of the initiatives that PNG has taken, and your team in particular has been able to, work on that agenda and to improve the odds? And expectations from you personally are high in this regard because you've always championed it and you've been recognized for it earlier as well with 2 awards in the Pitch CMO Summit in the categories of the most socially responsible and special award for gender equity. So you hold the mantle there and you have a special responsibility there. So could you share a little bit more about what PNG has been up to and what your team has been
Absolutely.
able to?
No, it's my pleasure, my delight. So thank you for the question. We've always believed, and I personally also believe, that our brands have a lot of responsibility, and they actually can be not just a force for. They're not just a force for business. They can be a force for good, and they can be a force for change. So ever since and I've been lucky enough to work on brands which have given me this opportunity. So whether it be Ariel and then the Share the Load movement, with Whisper, Touch the Pickle, right now I'm privileged to work on the feminine hygiene category. So our Keep Girls in program allows us to really make a positive change in the world around. Now, this agenda is unchanged even as we speak through COVID. Like I said, COVID has been a bigger impact on women. And therefore, that agenda needs to come even more to the forefront. One of the big areas which actually now we are rededicating ourselves to is that of schooling and keeping girls in school. Right. So there are a few aspects of how COVID impacts it. Firstly, a lot of the time when the schools are closed now, kids are expected to study from home. The infrastructure is not there, especially in countries like India. It's not very easy to access the computers and Zoom meetings and have those calls. And much more so for girls, where somehow their education sometimes is not given the same importance, especially when there is work to be done at home. So here is where, for instance, we started the Mobile Shala initiative in India with Whisper, where we curated all the content that the girls needed for education, right, for 6th, 10th grade girls. And we made it available for free along with our partner Pratham. And you can access it on the mobile. You can even kind of take all classes, all the important classes the girls can take at their own time. This is one such initiative. We continue to work towards menstrual education. As you know, a lot of, 1 in 3 girls tends to drop off. 2.3 crore girls in India drop off schools once they hit their periods. And we've been working on it for decades now, more than 15 years, but we have recommitted to really giving menstrual educations. We have already given to 2.3 crore girls. We've recommitted that we'd give it to 4 crore girls, menstrual education and free pads, so that they can continue to stay in school. So that's one big aspect of what the company, at least in my current role, what I'm doing as the face and as the leader of this feminine hygiene business for this region. Now, this is an initiative not just in India. We are doing this initiative across the world. In India, we've also got partnership from UNESCO. And now we will be partnering with UNESCO to make sure that we can make period education as well as pads available to more and more girls in India. On the other hand, there are many other brands, P&G brands, which are the face for change, face for good. You might have seen the Gillette movement, you have seen the Ariel movements. And one aspect of it is brands which can make a social difference, right? And and bring about a social change. The other area that we look towards is our partners, as well as our agency partners and our vendors. So we've committed to spend 200 crore in India with women entrepreneurs. And that's a declaration that actually Madhu, who's the CEO of India PNG, has just made. And we've had a similar commitment globally to spend with women entrepreneurs. And the final aspect, for instance, which I say is working with partners. The declaration we've made is that at least 50% of the films that we make, our advertising that we make, will be made with female directors. You'll be surprised when I joined the company and when we used to make films and ad films, everybody on the slate used to be male. Less, like you quoted the number, less than 4% of the production that's made in the world of ad films is actually by female directors. So that is something that we're committed to change. And we made a declaration that 50% of our advertising will be made by female directors. These are a few of the many other changes that the company is going to bring about, that the declarations that PNG has made. And I'm just lucky to be in an environment and in a situation where the work that I do, the brands that we get the opportunity to work on can actually make such changes.
And so those are really interesting initiatives, and I'm sure those will have a lasting effect, because I mean, the most important thing obviously is to sustain that. But as bad as 2020 was, interestingly, it also saw a most welcome milestone, right? For the first time ever, women are now present on the board of every S&P 500 company. Yes. And women made up 47% of the incoming class of new directors. And that's the highest percentage to date. And this is according to the, of course, 2020 Spencer Stuart Board Index. But from where you are and the visibility that you have, do you see this as a trend, and do you see it sustaining or accelerating?
See, it will require push. And you know that this trend is also not just autonomous by itself. It has happened because of the legislation passed, right? And therefore, the companies are looking towards more and more female representation in the board. So it required a push by the government. And I think such pushes are sometimes needed in a system which can otherwise just be just by virtue of history being patriarchal, and therefore promote more and more of that simply because the people to be chosen from are comprised of that pool, right? Especially at the board level. I think such a legislation made sure that then women were trained as directors, women were actually part of the portal. The government created a portal where independent directors were also registered, and that gave the companies a chance to choose women. I see the trend continuing as there becomes greater and greater push for equal representation across levels. I see this push going, and I think if companies make similar declarations and similar agendas, then there is no reason why we should not see this now propagating itself, because as more and more women get into the higher echelons, then there's more and more for the companies to pick from when they're choosing the compositions of their boards, etc. So I think it's a very positive trend, and I see it continuing.
And you are obviously also on the board of companies as well. What would be your advice to women to get board ready?
It's very interesting. I found myself on the board for Procter & Gamble Health and Hygiene as well as Gillette. And the first time I walked into a board meeting, not only was everybody male that I expected, but everybody was twice my age, okay, at least. Right? Other than the people of P&G, right? Everybody was that age, and it can be quite intimidating. So my advice to women to get board ready is, firstly, the first thing you have to do is convince yourself that you deserve to be there, right? Sometimes there's a feeling that it's like, oh no, I am there only because there is a need to have a female director, and maybe I don't deserve it. I think firstly, you need to really be sure and convince yourself that you're there because of capability, you will add value, and you deserve to be there. Then after which, it's important, there is now actually a lot of online classes that you can take. And actually, the government has opened a portal such as that, where you can actually go and you get a lot of classes on how to get board ready. There are even certifications that you can take. So there is a lot of formal help that is available for you to train yourself to be much more productive when you find yourself at a board level. The last is, don't be shy to actually ask or to apply for board positions. If you think you have the skill and you have the capability and you've taken the trainings and the certifications, don't feel shy to ask, say, a placement consultant and this is like placement. This is like companies look for people to be on the board. So this is like any job hunt. All right. Don't be shy to go and look for it. It's a good thing to get this experience. It's a good thing to be considered there. So my advice would be just go for it.
Well, I mean, these are obviously very, very important achievements that you have under your belt. But obviously, none of the achievements come easy, and especially when you have to be very cognizant of balancing family and work. How did you manage, work-life balance? What were your surefire mantras?
No, I told you that the mantras I told you before. I think for me, a big piece has been the family support. Sanjeev, my mother-in-law, and overall my children as well, my daughter and my son, they are very, very proud of the fact that I'm working. They understand, right? There would be times when I would feel really guilty. And I would say, like, is it worth it? Should I just stay? But then I realized, and over time, and this would be my advice to the younger girls out there as well, they're going to go to college, they're going to find their space. And then you don't want to be in a place where you left everything saying it's for them, and then they go and do their stuff, and at around 45 or somewhere you wonder, now what is my life about? So what am I now going to do? So I think kids too, they understand. We might give them less credit for the fact that they understand that you are actually doing something really important, and they're proud of it. So I'm very glad for that as well, that support as well from my kids. I'm not always able to come to their parent-teacher meetings. Sometimes I can't always be there for their sports events, but they're fine. Between Sanjeev, myself, and my mother-in-law, we somehow handle it, right? So the first one I would say from personal experience is get the right partner, get the right spouse. And if possible, try and meet the mom as well before you really fall for the guy. And so it makes such a big difference to have a mother-in-law who's so supportive. And it would be very different if she was different, right? If she was a different person. So to all the girls, right, before you just say yes, the boy is important, but if possible, look at the mom and the family and the mom-in-law as well. It'll make a big difference. The other advice I think is, I would say give up the pursuit of trying to do everything yourself and then trying to be perfect at everything. It doesn't happen that way, right? You have to take help from wherever it comes. Now, I have a maid. I have had full-time maids. In fact, there was a time on career when I used to be asked locational preferences. I used to write, right? It should give my mother-in-law a visa. My husband should find English-speaking financial industry, and there should be household help available, right? So wherever the help comes from, take it. You don't have to do everything yourself. You will need help from your spouse and partner, from sometimes your assistant, right? Sometimes your maid. Take it, right? It's what you need to do. And then don't really go for perfection all the time. There'll be times where you'll miss things. I missed this meeting yesterday. I was talking to my daughter over the weekend. Right? There'll be times where you will make mistakes and you will not be perfect, but it's okay. Right. My final advice is going to be learn to live with some guilt. It's the cost of trying to do it all or have it all. There will be times you will feel guilty. You come back from maternity 3 months or 4 months, you'll feel guilty about leaving your little one, your child starting school, but you have to literally, tear the baby away and go to work every day. These are tough times. You'll miss some important occasions sometimes. But it's worth it. I mean, it's worth it, and you have to make it worth it. But to say that you'll do all of this with not a shred of guilt, I think that's unrealistic. And we have to just be comfortable with the concept of living with that. So those are just a few of the tips I would give to the girls out there.
No, Sonali, that was really interesting and very illuminating, and I'm sure a lot of women will connect with that, and our students who are going to be watching this as well will take in a lot of art from where they want to be and how they would like to achieve that, and this surely gives them a lot of tips and a lot of important wisdom, I would say, to to chart their course in the context that they find themselves. And but well, thank you very much, Sonali, for this, and congratulations again for the Young Alumni Achievers Award. And these are early days still for you, so I'm sure that we'll hear a lot more about you and hear a lot more from you. And so, congratulations and Godspeed and best luck for everything.
Thank you so much, Anurag. Thank you again. It's been a privilege and a joy. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.